He called her my daughter every day of her life, but when he died, the will claimed she didn't exist. What they didn't count on was the evidence he left behind. Janelle Brooks didn't even get a full minute inside the church before feeling the first sting. It wasn't a slap or a word. It was the silence. The kind that hangs in the air a little too long when someone walks in who's not really wanted. People looked, then looked away. Some nodded politely. Others acted like they didn't even see her. She tightened the belt on her navy blue coat and walked toward the front pew, where the casket stood surrounded by white lilies and a photo of her father, Harold Brooks, a retired math teacher known in Florence, South Carolina as the kind man with the quiet smile. Janelle hadn't seen some of these people in over a decade, maybe longer, but Harold had raised her as his daughter since she was 9 years old. That meant something. At least it used to. She sat down next to her Aunt Greta, who offered a tight smile and a single word. Hey, no hug, no warmth. Janelle stared ahead. Her chest ached, not just from the loss, but from this feeling she couldn't shake. Like she didn't belong here, like she was being tolerated. She tried not to let it get to her. Funerals made people weird. The service began. The pastor spoke gently, with stories about Harold's generosity and kindness. Janelle held herself together until they played his favorite Sam Cooke song. That cracked her. She let a few tears fall, keeping her face down. After the service, the family gathered in the church basement for a light reception. Fried chicken, macaroni, pound cake, all the usual. Janelle grabbed a paper plate and stood in the corner near the drinks, waiting for a moment to collect herself. Then came the man she hadn't seen in years, Conrad Elgin. Same slicked-back hair, same careful smile. The long-time family lawyer who handled Harold's legal affairs since before Janelle even moved in. Janelle, he said, tilting his head, you've grown into quite the woman. Heard you're doing good work in Charlotte. She managed a stiff smile. Trying my best, thank you. He lowered his voice. Listen, I wanted to speak to you privately, just for a second. It's about the will. That phrase alone made her stomach flip. She followed him down a narrow hallway into a small office, away from the chatter and clinking forks. Conrad closed the door softly behind them. I won't take much of your time, he said. But I felt it was best to be honest with you before the reading. There's no easy way to say this. He sat down and steepled his fingers like he was preparing for surgery. Your name doesn't appear in Harold's will. Janelle frowned. What? It appears that, legally speaking, your adoption was never finalized. I've double-checked everything. There's no court record, no finalized paperwork. So, as it stands, you're not recognized as a legal heir. The heir went still. Janelle stared at him, blinking slowly, like her brain couldn't quite catch up. She laughed once, more in disbelief than humor. That doesn't make any sense. I lived with him since I was a kid. He raised me. He called me his daughter every single day. I'm not saying he didn't love you, Conrad said quickly. But legally, I can only go by what's on paper. And right now, that paper doesn't include you. So you're telling me my father, the man who paid for my college, who took me to every doctor appointment, who taught me to change my car oil, just forgot to make it official. I'm sorry, Conrad said, voice dipped in false sympathy. But it happens more often than you think. She stared at him. Her mouth opened, then closed. Her father was careful. Always. He didn't forget things like that. And he never treated her like an afterthought. Janelle's voice dropped. Did my cousins know about this? Conrad hesitated. That was enough. Her breath grew shallow. A lump formed in her throat, but she swallowed it. Not here. Not in front of him. She stood. Thanks for the update, she said coldly, turning for the door. His voice followed her. Again, I'm really sorry. She didn't respond. As she stepped back into the fluorescent-lit hallway, something shifted inside her. Grief took a back seat. Suspicion grabbed the wheel. But she couldn't shake the feeling that Conrad wasn't telling her everything, and something about this will didn't add up. By the time Janelle got back to her rental car, her hands were shaking. She sat there in the driver's seat with the keys in her lap, staring through the windshield like she could somehow rewind the last 15 minutes. The man who'd once sent her birthday card signed Uncle Conrad had just cut her out of her own father's life with a few cold sentences. She didn't cry. Not yet. Her face was too hot for tears. She started the engine and drove to the house she used to call home. It was a modest 2-story place on Mayflower Drive. White shutters, rusted mailbox, same crack in the driveway that had been there since she was 12. But it felt unfamiliar now, like it had already started to forget her. Inside, it smelled like lemon polish and dust. Some of the furniture had been rearranged. Her cousin Melanie, Harold's niece, was already staying there, acting like she owned the place. Melanie barely looked up from her phone when Janelle walked in. "Heard you talk to Conrad," she said, tone flat. "That's rough." Janelle dropped her bag by the stairs. "You knew." Melanie shrugged. "It's not like it was a secret. Daddy told me a while ago. Said Uncle Harold never filed the final paperwork." "That's a lie," Janelle shot back. "He showed me the adoption certificate himself. It used to hang right here." She pointed toward the hallway. "Next to the mirror. Where is it?" Melanie looked over lazily. "Girl, that thing was just for show." "You really thought that meant something?" Janelle's throat tightened. She turned and walked down the hallway. The frame was gone. The wall looked freshly patched. Her fingers ran along the drywall, and her heart started pounding. She turned to Melanie. "Why would you take it down?" Melanie stood now, finally looking serious. "Why are you digging around? He's gone, Janelle. There's nothing to fight over." Janelle took a step forward. "You're scared I'll find something?" Melanie crossed her arms. "You think just because he loved you, that means you get something? That's not how this works. Blood talks." "Harold never cared about blood," Janelle snapped. "He chose me. You were barely around." Silence. Just the distant sound of the fridge humming in the kitchen. Melanie finally muttered, "Doesn't matter now." Janelle stormed upstairs to her old bedroom. It had been converted into a sewing room, the bed replaced by a folding table covered in fabric scraps and tangled threads. But one thing remained, an old cedar chest in the corner. She opened it. Inside were photo albums, cards, some books. She pulled one out, Charlotte's Web, with her name scribbled